church this morning. All of you, yes, thank you.
Morning.
Thank you. Lovely to see you
I'm
and your
here.
smiling faces. It's fine.
I was having great community conversation. That's what was happening. And I was watching that clock a lot before the church started, keeping my eye on it. And then, till I wasn't. All right, let's just dive into some worship this morning, shall we? All right. Jesus Christ, will you guide me through this life? Wake me with each morning's light. Oh, and keep my soul. Through your strength, all my fears will fade away. As you lead me in your ways, I will trust in you. Your love is deep, your love is wide. I will rest in your arms tonight. Your love is deep, your love is wide. I will rest tonight. All I see is your beauty chasing me. Oh, the love that sets me free. I am found in you. And your love is deep, your love is wide. I will rest in your arms tonight. Your love is deep, your love is wide. I will rest Your love is deep, your love is wide. I will rest in your arms tonight. Your love is deep, your love is wide. I will rest Lay your peace like a blanket over me, and as I lay down to sleep, I will rest in you. I was just thinking about those last words, and we're going to do the complete opposite now in the next song because we're going to start waking up. This is like one of my favorite worship songs. If you want to get up and you want to dance with me, you feel free to do that. Or if you just want to sit in your chair and keep it elevated, you do that too. I was done, I was lost, I was asleep at the wheel, I was drifting off. My heart was failing, yeah, my heart was failing. In the dark, heard a song, it was the sweetest sound that I've ever heard. And my soul went sailing, yeah, my soul went sailing. I'm waking up, I can feel my heart beating and breath in my lungs. It's like a shot You're singing all around. Can you hear the music? Can you hear the sound? Love in all its beauty is singing all around. I know that you're singing all around. I'm waking up. I'm waking up. I'm waking up. I can feel my heart beating a breath in my lungs. I'm on fire, finally free. I am alive. I am alive. I'm waking up. I'm waking up. I can feel my lungs breathing. I am alive in the land of the living. Woo! That'll get you going. Who needs the coffee, right? Right? We just need a good song. Of course.
Thank you, thank you. I think there's a slide to go up. The slide I sent you? Oh, okay. Well, that's okay. I've got a backup. I got a backup plan. I got a backup plan. I did everything else. It's all good. It's all good. How does a leprechaun say goodbye? I wish you well. Well, you know, I feel like the person who didn't put the other slide up is not the person who gets to take offense in this. That's how that one works. Okay, so announcements today. Next Sunday afternoon, not after church. I was wrong. Sorry. At 4 o'clock, because we had this like miscommunication that after church meant right after church. Anyways, 4 o'clock next Sunday afternoon at the Bent House. There will be burgers and dogs. Please bring a side dish to share. Bring your own adult beverage. Pop and juice will be provided. That's the plan, gang. That is at Nathan and Carrie and everyone else's house. It is definitely the Bent House right now. And I hear it is very full at the house. So you know, somebody has to leave, and I guess Nathan and Carrie picked the short straws. So they're being kicked off the boat, and we are going to go bid them adieu. Something like that. 4 p.m. Yeah, I hear sudden need for a family member. With that information, please mark your calendars, plan to be there for that. And then the following Sunday, we will be saying goodbye to them here at church, sending them off properly. As a congregation, if you think you might need them, bring your tissues. We have birthdays this morning. We have birthdays. They're official. Claire is hiding upstairs as low as she possibly can get, but there's snacks, and I don't think she's going to stay away from the snacks. So make sure you say happy birthday to her directly. She wants to talk to all of you. And Nicole posted this beautiful picture of her holding both boys for her birthday, or maybe Jess posted it for her. And for some reason, she's not here. I don't know, slacker. But either way, we're going to sing happy birthday to Claire and to Nick.
All right. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Claire and Nicole, wherever you are. Happy birthday. go and get a snack and some coffee, and we'll come back here in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. When the thing says, and I'm going to pay attention to the clock this time, so I'll be back on the stage then.
and you came to my rescue, and I wanna be where you are. Falling on my knees in worship, giving all I am to seek your face. Lord, all I am is yours. My whole life I place in your hands. God of mercy, humbled I bow down in your presence at your throne. I call, you answer, and you came to my rescue, and I wanna be where you are. Let's sing that again. I called, you answered, and you came to my rescue, and I wanna be where you are. My life be lifted high in our world, be lifted high in our love, be lifted high in my life, be lifted high in our world, be lifted high in our love, be lifted high. I called, you answered, and you came to my rescue, and I wanna be where you are. I call, you answered, and you came to my rescue, and I wanna be where you are. In my life, be lifted high in our world, be lifted high in our love, be lifted high. In my life, be lifted high in our world, be lifted high in our love, be lifted high. I called, you answered, and you came to my rescue, and I wanna be where you are. Let that be our prayer, God, today. Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus and to take him at his word, just to rest upon his promise and to know, thus saith the Lord. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him, how I proved him o'er and o'er. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust him more. Oh, how sweet to trust in Jesus, just to trust his cleansing blood, and in simple faith to plunge me 'neath the healing, cleansing flood. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him, how I proved him o'er and o'er. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust him more. Yes, 'tis sweet to trust in Jesus, just from sin and self to cease, just from Jesus simply taking life and rest and joy and peace. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him, how I proved him o'er and o'er. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust him more. I'm so glad I learned to trust thee, precious Jesus, Savior, friend, and I know that thou art with me, wilt be with me to the end. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him, how I proved him o'er and o'er. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust him more. Oh, for grace to trust him more.
Troubled and heavy-hearted, come to Jesus and find your peace. And if you're run down and empty-handed, come to Jesus and find your strength. Hope for the helpless, he is rest for the weary, help for the hurting, he is mending the broken, bearing the burden.
I worked as a doula for 12 years of my life. Don't worry, I didn't use any of the scarier pictures. Just this one that I found on the internet, has nothing to do with anyone I ever worked with. Just disclaimer there. Over that time, along with working with hundreds of clients prenatally and postpartum, I actually got to attend 52 births in 12 years, which is a really, really awesome and amazing privilege. Birth, in case you don't know this, looking around me, I think most of you do. In case you don't know this, birth is kind of a physical thing. It's a little bit messy, uses some muscles, some strength. Sometimes there's sweat involved. Sometimes there's other things involved. Just so you know, it's a very physical thing. It's also incredibly cool, right? Like to be able to be there in the middle of all of that physicality and be able to support someone through that, like I did as a doula. Like, that is just like kind of mind-bogglingly cool experience that I will never ever take for granted or probably ever forget. Because being there with someone when they greet their child for the first time it's a thing you don't forget anytime soon. There's just one, as far as I'm concerned, there's just one downside to being a doula. It's exhausting. Okay, it also does usually lose you at least one night of sleep. I don't know what it is with babies. They want to come at night. I think they figure you're like safe in your cave behind your fire and no animals will be able to get you. I don't know, maybe that's it. Maybe there is a third thing. You rarely know when it's going to happen. There's no planning for babies. Even when they're like scheduled C-sections, sometimes they don't come when they're supposed to. Like there's no planning. So okay, maybe it's not one thing, maybe it's three things. There's three downsides to being a doula. But the bottom line here is that when it comes to babies and birthing, it's really hard to know when you will next get to sleep. Just, nobody's pregnant currently here that I know of, so I can't, give you a specific warning, but, if you're out there and you're thinking of having babies, just so you know, hard to know when you're going to sleep next. It's even hard to know when you're going to sleep next when you're the doula. So it's hard to get enough sleep because, for three reasons, really. Like, the first one is, it's hard to go to sleep in the first place. Because you're amped up on adrenaline because someone sent you a text at 2 o'clock in the afternoon that you think maybe they'll go into labor tonight, but you don't know if they're going to or when they're going to, and that's a thing. So, you don't want to go to sleep because the phone might ring at any moment. Hard to go back to sleep after you've been asleep, gotten woken from a dead sleep by your phone ringing, and then talk them down because that's not labor. No, I know you wish. But no, that's not labor. Go to sleep. Now I have to go to sleep. It's also hard to do this because when I worked as a doula, I didn't just have one client. I mean, eventually I got smarter and I didn't take as many, but the first year I was a doula, I had 20 births in 1 year. And I know that theoretically that averages to 2 a month or a little less than. The problem is I didn't do it that way. Or I tried and it didn't work so well. I had one 30-day period in which I had 5 babies born and one baby who I went for a lactation visit, and I was the one to realize that he was very, very sick and got him to a hospital and spent a night convincing them to take him in, which was a good thing because he had meningitis at 8 days old, and he survived because of that. But as a result, I think I missed about 7 full nights of sleep in that 30-day period. Several of those births were also complicated in one way or another. I did a lot of complicated births in general, but 3 of those births were down at Mount Sinai in the special pregnancy unit because of how complicated they were, which means that not only was I not getting enough sleep, but I was having to drive up and down the 400 without having had enough sleep, which all of you young drivers out there, do not do this. This is a very bad thing. Do not get into a car at 3:30 in the morning when you haven't slept for a while. It's not good. Don't think you're invincible. You're not. Don't do it. Very bad. Somehow I survived. Don't do this. So I learned a lot of things in that month. One of the things I learned that I will carry with me for the rest of my life is how to sleep when I am able to sleep. Not waiting until the big event or the crisis is over, just like head down, legs up, eyes closed, do it.
How do we learn said special skills?
Stick with me. Stick with me.
Asking for friends.
Asking for a friend. Turns out, that's not just sound advice, that's what Jesus would do. But before we get to Jesus, anybody feel like getting nerdy with me? Anybody?
And we need to have sleep first.
No, you don't need to have sleep first. Although maybe it'll help you get sleep. I don't know. It'll either be really interesting or you'll get the sleep that you missed last night. You take your pick. It is officially nerd time. So Roy did a great job with like the basics of what we're doing here during Lent, this Lent Incarnate series that we're doing. We want to think about what it means to be humans well by looking at what Jesus was like as a human. But because this is what my thesis is on and because this is what I taught a lecture on this week, I'm going to give you some background information for why I thought this would be a really interesting thing for us to do. And you can tell us afterwards whether it was interesting or, if you fall asleep, I'll have my answer. So we talked today about Jesus being fully God and fully human as if it was this like always known, always settled, obvious, self-evident fact, except wasn't always like that. So in the decades and first centuries, even after Jesus' life and death and resurrection, there was a lot of debate about how all of this worked. To a Jewish audience, the idea that God could show up as fully in human form and still be God was utterly blasphemous. It's not okay. You can't say that. Jesus as Messiah was one thing. Some people could wrap their heads around that, but to claim, Jesus' claim that he was the Son of God, that's what got him killed. That was the problem point. To say, as a human being, God is my direct father, I am fully God and fully human, not okay. Unthinkably, wildly unacceptable. And then as Christianity moved out from Jerusalem and Judea into the rest of the Roman world, it encountered Gentiles. And these Gentiles also had some ideas about gods, plural, mostly. And there were two kind of ways of thinking about gods for these Gentile Christians that they, like, places they'd grown up in, right? On the one hand, gods could be like those we find in mythology, Zeus and Hera, Demeter and Apollos, and so on, right? And these gods, they had limited power over certain areas of human life. But let's face it, they were a little fickle. They were unpredictable. You couldn't really trust them. You'd, make sacrifices to them and, hope and pray, right? These gods of mythology, they did sometimes show up on earth in the stories as gods still. They sometimes even conceived children with human beings, so then they were half gods and half humans. But the ones who were gods were always still gods, and the ones that were demigods were always still demigods. There was none of this, like, fully human, fully divine stuff, not a thing. Just doesn't make any sense. So a fully human, fully God Jesus, who has power over all of creation, is impossible for them to fathom. On the other hand, gods could be thought of in the Platonic sense, and I am grossly simplifying here. The transcendent one, the perfection of all perfection, and specifically the perfection of the intellect, the mind, the reason. So different Greek philosophers understood this in different ways. If you want to read something on it, I can give you a book that's really fascinating. It might help with your sleep problems, if nothing else. What I'm going to say now is a total simplification, okay? But for this morning, what's important to catch is that for some of these philosophers, the body is just like a prison for the soul. It not only holds souls captive, but it limits the soul's capacity to attain to its highest purposes and callings. These purposes and callings are to find their way back to the transcendent one. So you can't do that if the idea that Jesus was fully the one and fully a human just doesn't make any sense. There's no space for that. It's not compatible. Okay? And what all this means is that as Christians tried to make sense of who Jesus was and what his life and death and resurrection meant, the idea that Jesus was simultaneously God and human was a real challenge for people to make sense of. We could argue that this is because the word for fully human and fully divine in Greek is homoousios, and that's just a really difficult word to say. Do you want to try it? Homoousios. It's kind of fun, isn't it? Like, it makes all the mouth muscles tingle. But it's more than just fun mouth feeling. It's the word that says that Jesus, the human, was the same substance as Jesus, who was God. And the guys in this picture are some of the early church fathers like Gregory of Nazianzus and Gregory of Nyssa and Irenaeus and Tertullian, who wrote during this time period with arguments against the people who wanted to squirm their way out of the discomfort that Jesus was both fully God and fully human. And we can't know for sure how truthfully they painted their opponents, because, how many of us, when we are writing to argue against someone, are always perfectly clear on how we understand what they've said? Okay, that's a thing. But we do still have their explanations for what they thought the arguments were. And so that means we know that writers like Marcion and Apelles and Valentinius were okay with the idea that Jesus was God in visible form, but they were really, really uncomfortable with the idea of God actually factually becoming a real flesh and blood human. So they came up with lots of alternatives to try to explain what had happened, right? Like, maybe Jesus was only fully God, but had zipped himself into a human suit like they do on The Good Place. That's a thing. That's a thing. I think they actually might have gotten that idea from the ancient writers. Maybe Jesus only looked like a human on the outside. Some of them went so far, they were so worried about the immaterial godness touching the material humanness that they thought that Jesus sort of like hoverboarded through the world. His feet never touched the ground. It only looked like he touched people, because otherwise, he would have gotten icky peopleness on him. So there was not only this fear over the idea of Jesus' humanity, there was even disgust at the idea of the perfection of the one, God, obviously not the same thing, except when we're making that move from our own culture to Jesus, don't we sometimes accidentally goof and pull some of the things in with us? That's a thing. So they were so worried about God engaging with the messiness and tangibility of what it meant to be human that these thinkers were adamant that it was not possible that Jesus would have gone through the physicality that was birth, all that sweat and all that growing inside of a body even before that, and then that birth canaling, and then God can't get all that materiality on God. That couldn't work. But these guys, they were convinced that you couldn't just skip the humanity of Jesus. It wouldn't work. They said there were lots of reasons for this, but like one of the reasons was that unless Jesus was both fully human and fully God, Jesus could not save humanity. I can take you through all of that, but it's longer than I have this morning, so if you're really interested, come and bug me, and if you're not, dodged a bullet there. They also argued that if it wasn't a human Jesus who was resurrected from the dead, then there was no hope that us as human beings would experience the resurrection. And this was so crucial. And all of that is right and good and important, but the thing that I find really, really interesting this morning is that they also argued that if you denied the humanity of Jesus, if you thought that Jesus' humanity was a shameful thing, not worthy of God, if you looked at Jesus in the nativity with disgust, then there would be no way of ever looking at yourself or at any other human being without thinking the same thing. Tertullian wrote this whole long thing about it. I was going to read it out, and then I was like, oh, then we won't stop until 12:30. So we missed it. You're lost. Come find me. But I got to wondering if appreciating whether Jesus was fully human, that Jesus had been conceived and gestated and born and fed as an infant the same way you and I experience those things, if appreciating that could help us to love ourselves better and love each other better, which is what Tertullian writes, I wondered if this homoousios idea could help us in any other way. Because we have this thing at Vox, we talk about a lot about sanctification, the process of becoming the people Jesus would be if Jesus were us. And I wondered whether if we spent some time thinking about how Jesus was a human being in Galilee and Nazareth and Judea in the first century, if it could help us figure out how to be better humans here in Simcoe County or wherever you're joining us from online in the 21st century, right? So I thought that's what we would do for Lent, and this morning I thought we could think about that time that Jesus slept as a way into this. Okay, so I know he slept a lot of times. I suspect he slept, on average, sort of once per 24-hour period. But there is this one time that we hear about in a rather dramatic fashion. This is what it says in Luke 8. One day, Jesus and his disciples boarded a boat. He said to them, "Let us cross over to the other side of the lake." So they set sail. While they were sailing, he fell asleep. Gale force winds swept down on the lake. The boat was filling up with water, and they were in danger. Just to be clear, that was bad. So they went and woke Jesus, shouting, "Master, Master, we're going to drown." But he got up and gave orders to the wind and the violent waves, and the storm died down, and it was calm. He said to the disciples, "Where is your faith?" Filled with awe and wonder, they said to each other, "Who is this? He commands even the winds and the water."